All right, joining us now here on Bad Weather Fans, as promised, is Zach Gelb. He is the host of the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio, which is from 6 to 10 p.m. Eastern, 3 to 7 p.m. Pacific. You can also hear him in New York City on WFAN 101.9, 660 AM. He is a sports talk host, and he is good at his job. You know what? He is great at his job. Zach, how the hell are you?
You lying SOB. Alex is great, by the way. Yes. I love Alex, other than his awful Twitter game, which I've now been subjected to. Mike, you suck. You're all right. You're adequate at this.
That's
but
fair.
The other day, when I get a DM from Alex, we mentioned you on the pod. I thought it was going to be something like entertaining. And Alex, for whatever the reasons were, had no clue when I was actually mentioned.
No chance.
So I'm sitting there and I'm listening to the entire podcast just because I want to hear what I'm mentioned in. And the next thing
you're welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah,
you're welcome.
No, you were nice. Zach Gelb is great from Alex. And then my former producer, someone that I used to love in Mikey B before he left me for some other job, just goes, "Oh yeah, Zach isn't great. You know,
Easy
he's
up
a
on
nice guy, but we use great way too freely," which he's not wrong. At least I rubbed off on him because for years, when I worked, well, not for years, I only worked for 2 years, but I would say, people use the word great way too often, and he's using it against me. I'm just disgusted.
Well, I learned from you, and that's why I did it. And Zach, you are awesome. You are the best. You are fantastic. And I loved working together. We had a lot of fun. It was a weird time that we worked together because, in full disclosure, it was like we worked together in studio for a little bit, and then it was like, okay, there's a pandemic. Now we're going to work, and I'm going to be like, I have my cat on my leg producing the show. You're in your parents' basement hosting the show.
Yeah.
That was just a crazy time to go from we're together, we're communicating, we're getting this chemistry, we're having fun, to, okay, we're going to be working. I'm listening to you on a 3-minute delay, which makes producing a radio show fucking difficult because you're like, get to the read. And then you're like, I did the read. And, all that kind of stuff that goes on. But you're very good with the reads. But you know what I mean? It was just a weird back and forth.
We could curse on this, by the way. When I was on Sirius, I never knew if I should curse or not because it was kind of frowned upon unless if you were Howard Stern. So you could say fuck on here. That's pretty cool.
Now everybody gets to hear you say it.
If I said that on radio, if I said fuck on radio, I get a call from Mark Chernoff or David Mayernick, and Mark would go, "Zach, you can't say fuck on the radio. We got to fucking fire you." So I can't say that here, so I'll say that now.
He would say, Biseglia, you should know better. Don't let Gelb say fuck.
Oh, we got rid of Biseglia? He left the company? I had no clue. But you're right. That was bizarre because, it was bizarre that I had to leave the city where I was living on my own. And then for more space and to do the show, I was with my parents, which was nice. And then also when you're my age, you want to get away from your parents too. And now I am. So it was good and bad. But I remember when you called me up, not to get too personal here and too sentimental, not like we worked for 20 years together. I remember when you called me up and you're like, "Hey, I don't feel well. I'm calling out sick tonight." And I go, the guy's working from home. Even if you're not feeling well, sit in your bed with your chicken soup. It's not like you're doing much for the show right now when you're at home. Yeah. and then the next thing I know, I found out that he got COVID, and I was like, oh, well, he was actually really, really sick. Because I was wondering how to kind of use my sick days at the time too, which I never ended up using because I felt bad about using sick days in the middle of the pandemic. That wouldn't have been good. Company guy, Zach Gelb.
Don't want to brag, but I did book Ron Hunter while having COVID.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
that was a great spot.
Yeah, so just throwing that out there.
We still use a rejoin. Some caller said it was the greatest day of his life hearing Ron Hunter on the Zach Gelb Show.
Yeah, no, it's fair enough. Well, let's do a little Nets Knicks from your perspective. On a national side, you're not doing as much as the Net Nick rivalry, but your thoughts.
You're in New York, yeah,
you're in New York, and your thoughts on these two teams headed into the playoffs.
The Knicks have been just such an unbelievable story. And I hate to now make Alex's ego even larger than what it already is, but seriously, if you would have told me before the year that the Knicks would have been in the playoffs and not just through being the 9th or the 10th seed and playing in a playing game and losing, I would have thought you were batshit crazy now since we could curse on
Homer, you're ridiculous. Yeah.
No, I would have never believed it. And if you would have then told me that they also would have had a better record and more wins than teams like Boston, Miami, and Golden State, I would have never believed it. It just shows you when James Dolan gets out of the way, and hopefully now Dolan J. Trump doesn't go after me on Twitter for criticizing his guy, who is maybe him, or I don't know what the heck is going on with him. All I know is that like Amy Dashy tries to charge $55 for a hat or whatever it is. Now I'm just playing with Dolan J. Trump. But it's amazing to me how when you let Dolan, or when Dolan elects to get out of the way and hand it over to Leon Rose, and Leon Rose hires Tom Thibodeau, which, Alex, I remember some DMs with you. Oh, you can't hire Tom Thibodeau. You can't
I wasn't
hire
ready.
him.
Yeah, not yet. Yeah.
The guy is a phenomenal coach. And he's also, as Mikey B would know, a friend of the Zach Gelb show. Well, before he got the Knicks job, he was a friend of the Zach Gelb show. And now the Knicks, I guess, can't talk to anyone related to the Odyssey family. So now I don't get to talk to Tom Thibodeau anymore. But when you have competent people in there, they find a way to get a lot more out of something that is not good. Like the Knicks roster is not a good roster, but when you add in Leon Rose, who has good relationships and he knows how to build a team, even though this is his first time doing this, and you bring in Tom Thibodeau, he gets the most out of his players. So the Knicks have been a great story. And here's the biggest takeaway. I don't care if they win or lose up against the Hawks. I do think they will win that series in like 6 or 7 games. It's going to be awesome between Nate McMillan and Tom Thibodeau. 2 great stories this year. But the Knicks, you walk away, even if they lose in 5 games, and it would stink if they get swept, which I don't think will happen, and you feel comfortable with this regime, and you feel like you trust this regime. And now I want to see, whether it's through trades or free agency, how other players look at the Knicks. Because when KD was a free agent, when Kyrie was a free agent, when all these other players were free agents, the Knicks would always say, yeah, I want that guy. And they never had a chance at getting him. Now I think people look at the Knicks maybe a little bit similarly on just a bigger scale, how they did look at the Nets a few years ago, where there's trust with the plan and there's a direction that's going upwards and not downwards. Now, my message to James Dolan, stay out of the way for at least 3 to 4 more years.
Right. And you know what it is? I was talking about this with a buddy earlier today. 2013 felt like the pinnacle, the 54-win year with Melo was like, we were building to this year and it had to be this year. And then now this feels like it was unexpected. It's like the start of something. It's sort of like the Cubs in 2015. They get beat by the Mets in NLCS and all of a sudden it's like, we'll be back. And then they win the World Series. You know, it's kind of like, it feels like, I'm not saying they're going to win the championship next year, but I'm just saying like, it feels like.
Yeah, I would ask you to get drug tested if that was the case.
Yeah. Well, maybe I'd be right. You never know. But like Leon Rose is just like giving you so much trust. Like he stole Derrick Rose from the Pistons. Like he stole him like, for a 2nd-round pick. And Dennis Smith Jr. is absurd. The amount of production he's getting out of him right now. So I really have a lot of trust in him. And I think it makes Mike a little jealous. I just got to be honest with you.
It makes him 100% jealous because this is supposed to be his year, his team, and it still may well be. I still think the Nets are going to the NBA Finals. I think they're better than the Bucks. I think they're better than the Sixers. But yes, I think Mike gets a little bit too caught up in the Knicks on Twitter. And Alex, you get a little bit too caught up in the Nets on Twitter. And that's why you guys make a very good team and a very good duo. Notice I did not say great. I said good. But yeah, I think you guys both get caught up in things that you shouldn't be caught up in. But that's what makes Mike and Alex.
Yeah, that's true. And I've tried to not care about the Knicks as much. And I think I've accepted. I don't think I know. I've accepted the fact that they're just a really good basketball team. And they're a team that could potentially do some damage here in the Eastern Conference Finals. If that's making it whatever it is, winning a round, winning 2 rounds even, whatever it might be. The Knicks are a team that's a reckon with. And I've just accepted that. And now it's like, if the Knicks advance, so be it. But it's about what the Nets do. And the Nets are 16 wins away from me seeing something I've never seen before.
Yeah.
And that's the way I have to look at it in my head. Now, if the Nets were to lose in the second round, if the Nets were to somehow lose and the Knicks got further than them, I mean, I would be a fucking train wreck. I mean, it would be, I'd be, in truth be told, this is not real life stuff and there's bigger problems. I get that.
Right. Sports mad.
From a
sports upset.
sense,
yeah.
This would be as bad as it gets.
Well, I know what you're doing there. You're dangling the carrot in front of Alex's face by at least saying that the Knicks could win 2 rounds. The Knicks would only win 1 round at most. They're not going to beat the Sixers. And how embarrassing would that be? Philadelphia, after I'm seeing process tweets left and right over the weekend and embracing the process, which I get it. I was wrong on the process. I admit I was wrong on the process. But come on, after all these years, we're going to see old process tweets. And I get it. It's part of the fun of Twitter. After just getting the 1 seed, if Philadelphia doesn't get to the Eastern Conference Finals bare minimum this year, I don't care what they did in the regular season, it's embarrassing. Look at what their path's going to be. They're going to play the 8th seed. Who cares? They'll beat them in 4 or 5 games. And then you get 2 tough teams, but they're not going to beat you 4 times in either the Knicks or the Hawks. So Philly, This is your year to get to the finals. You better take advantage of it. And I still think from top to bottom, as we enter the postseason, I would rather have the Bucks or the Nets over the Sixers team. I think the Sixers are the third best team in the Eastern Conference.
Wow. And it's crazy because a couple years ago, if Kawhi doesn't hit that lucky shot, where
they get to the conference finals potentially.
Yeah. And you never know what could happen at that point. So that's crazy to say. I just wanted to bring it back to Mike real quick. I don't know, started to ruin the flow of the conversation. I wanted to know if there's any kind of embarrassing story that we can put on blast for Mike when he was your producer. I know I didn't get to that before when we were rambling on, but I wanted to see if there was anything there.
I don't think there's any embarrassing stories because here's the thing about Mike. Mike always just embraces when he has a blunder. That's why I always enjoyed working with Mike. We didn't take ourselves all that too seriously. Mm-hmm. I will say, though, we did have someone of fame that was listening to the show, Zach Gelb, who was a former offensive lineman for the Saints, was their play-by-play guy, now coaching again. I don't remember exactly, Mike. He either said that if Michael Jordan played today, he could average a certain amount of points that was absurd, or in one single game, he could put up a ridiculous number. And I started trashing Mike, going after him. The guy is 50, so I'm like, what are you talking about? I know he's the greatest player of all time, blah, 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 blah. I didn't know Zach Gelb listened to the show. So I texted Zach Gelb the next day because we wanted him on to talk about Drew Brees and his future situation. He started going and saying to me, Zach, what is your producer? Is your producer drinking on the job? What kind of take was that last night? And I showed Mike the whole thread. So it was he either said he could average 50 points still in one game or could still average 20 points a game. Do you remember what that was? What your
something about Jordan and could he? And I got to be honest, I don't remember if I was on the side of yes, he could do it or no.
You were yes.
I was yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So I was probably just being contrarian to be an asshole or whatever it is.
We do fake radio here, kids. Okay, you don't listen to that crap. Come on. All right.
But I remember you saying Zach Gelb texted you, and I felt my ego felt good about that. I was like, the play-by-play guy for the Saints, their former center, who's now I think he's a coach for them now, right?
He's a coach.
Yeah, I've been trying to get Zach Gelb on Mike Delivers Pod. We were going back and forth.
That's why he doesn't respond to you anymore because he's a coach.
Yeah, and he disappeared.
I had a pretty good relationship with him. And when he was in line for the coaching job, obviously I didn't know it, but I think it was right around when Drew was still making the decision. I don't think he made the decision yet. I was trying to get him on, and he didn't text me back for a week. And I go, we were pretty tight with this guy. And then out of nowhere, once he got the job, he goes, yeah, this is why I couldn't text you because I was doing things for my future. Hope you understand. I was like, yeah, congratulations. Mazel tov. Or as you can say on this podcast, congratulations.
Should have been got mad at him and be like, what the fuck? You could have just came on the show or texted me back. Is that so hard?
Yeah, he was a former offensive lineman. So even though I'm a gargantuan human being, he could probably maul me still.
And that was always fun about Zach at Super Bowl, row. We didn't go together. You went, but it was you were bigger than all the Hall of Fame players.
Yeah, that is true.
But you and Michael Irvin, you're towering over them.
Yeah, a lot of people think I play. When I was in
that
college,
true in your profile then? Your Twitter profile where it says runs to decline an offer from somebody? I don't remember what it says.
Yeah, so the long story short here is I played high school football and then gave it up to pursue an announcing career. Mm-hmm. And then when I was in college, Matt Rule was the coach at Temple, and they brought in a new offensive line coach, Chris Wiesahan. So this guy's first day on the job, I guess they gave him some fake scouting report of me, and I was in on the joke, and they told him I was a recruit. And once I broke the news to him that I'm not actually a recruit, the guy said to me, F your broadcasting career and come play tackle for me. Not that I was ever going to start or actually play. The program was in such a bad spot, and it's incredible what Matt turned it around, and then eventually went to Baylor, now at the Carolina Panthers. But they needed just bodies in practice because they were so banged up on the offensive line. So it was good that I didn't get my brains just bashed in for about a semester. And I think the talk show and the radio career actually worked out somewhat decently. Not great, but somewhat decent.
Oh, stop it. Now you make me feel so bad about this. Jeez. I will say, Zach, I always enjoyed when your guest booking ability. So as a producer, there's a lot of stress on producers to get guests, to fill content. I used to do when I produced the morning show, I'd have a daily meeting where I'd meet with my program director, and we'd go over what guests do you have on the line? What do you have ready? And that actually prepared me a lot and helped me get better at guest booking. But I've always been so impressed, Zach, with even as the host, you took on the responsibility and did a great job of building relationships with getting guests. I want to know, is there one guest in particular Maybe the interview didn't go as great as you wanted it, but you were the most proud of being able to find this person and get them on the Zach Gelb show?
That's a good question. I'm trying to think of an answer there. Someone that I was it was pretty cool. And it was because of the relationship that I had. Not that he's the greatest interview in the world. Like, he's a good interview, but it's not one of my all-time favorites. I thought it was pretty neat where right after the NFC Championship game, Bruce Arians did one interview the Monday after the NFC title game, and it was with us. So that was pretty neat because you're walking around the office and people are saying, like, nice job, nice job, nice job, like, good job. How'd you get him?
5 and 5, yeah.
And it was because he went to Temple. He was a coach at Temple, back in the day. Not that I was even alive or even a thought when he was the coach of Temple, but I had him on when he was with the Colts, when he filled in for Pagano when Pagano had cancer. And I just stayed in contact with him. And he's the only head coach.
And
he's the only head coach where I don't have to go through a PR person to get. I literally texted him, congratulations. He got back to me with 2 whiskey emojis. He's a great emoji texter in Bruce Arians. And then I said, hey, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask, can we get you on today? And he goes, we could tape it. Call me at 4:30. Called him. He gave us like 15 minutes and it was a cool spot.
That's cool. That's the breaking news. Bruce Arians is an emoji texter. That's big breaking news right there.
Big time emoji texter.
And you're also a Tom Brady fan, so that kind of upset me. I remember we talked a while back, and you said you're a Patriots fan growing up on Long Island. How did that happen? That's kind of upsetting to me.
Yeah, so my
remember
dad.
The story though.
Yeah, my dad produced Mike and the Mad Dog, and on Sundays he would produce Mike's show. My next door neighbor was my uncle, who's from Framingham, Massachusetts. And you know when you have an uncle that's not really your uncle, like, this is my legitimate uncle, but my uncle's pretend uncle was Uncle Chuck, and Uncle Chuck's daughter was very close with my uncle, like family friends and all that. She ended up marrying Andre Tippett. So my uncle was a Patriots season ticket holder before that, and they would go to games. Then eventually the daughter that would go to games down the road married Andre Tippett. Andre is a converted Jew, by the way, in the Jewish Sports Hall of Fame, and takes the religion very seriously. And the Jewish Hall of Fame is at my gym where I grew up as a kid, the Suffolk Y JCC. So, yeah, there's like a little bit of a family connection there. My uncle would take me to games, and it just so happened that the team went on the greatest run that a sports franchise will ever go on in my formative years. So, yeah, I'm a diehard crazy Patriot fan.
Well, maybe he'll get in the next Hanukkah song for Adam Sandler. You never know.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. Andre Tippett, a Jew.
Do you ever, is it weird for you then, because you're a Mets fan, you're a Patriots fan, so you got like the Boston team and then the New York team. Do you look at like the Celtic fan base and then like look at the Patriot fan base and could like differentiate it? Is it weird? Like for me, it's New York teams. For Alex, it's New York team. Is it weird being like, I love the Pats, but then I'm going to go ahead and dislike the Red Sox? Is that a strange dynamic for you?
It's not weird for me because that's just how I grew up. I do find it funny, though, all these rules. Oh, you root for this team, so you can't root for that team. Like, Alex's head literally almost exploded when he found out I was a Patriot fan, and I was basically dead to him. I do find these rules to be funny. Like, root for who you want to root for. Now, if I was a Patriot fan for like 20 years, and then the next year, you know, I'm rooting for some other team, like I just become a Colts fan, yeah, then that's fraudulent. You pick your teams, you stick with your teams, and that's it. And everyone has a different story on why they root for the so-and-so team. Some could be, it was the first Super Bowl I ever watched. Some could be, oh, my dad, grew up in that area and made me become a fan. So it worked out pretty well for me. The only times where it was bizarre was one of my teachers in New York, when the Patriots lost the Super Bowl to the Giants, threw in the highlights of the Super Bowl in the PowerPoint slide. So there was some bullying going on against me at the time. Now, I could take it. And then I also did the Eagles postgame show in Philadelphia the night the Eagles won the Super Bowl. Now, it wasn't tough for me because—
you had so many,
not only that, I thought the Eagles were actually going to win the game. Mm-hmm. My job is not to tell everyone, I'm a Patriot fan and I'm pissed off that they lost the game. It was to elicit the emotion and the passion and the energy of that city. And I love sports. So if there's a good sports moment, I'll get jacked up about it on the air. If there is a moment of incompetence, like Matt Nagy with the Bears or whoever that may be, I'll rip him and I'll shred him. You know, there's been times that I've gone on big time rants, and I'm not a Jets fan, obviously, but incompetence just annoys me.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's why I got rid of Mikey B.
Oh, damn.
All kidding aside, Mikey B, going back to the guest booking thing, I loved how we kind of not made it a challenge, but we would just kind of, channel each other's like extra gear to go on out and just, it wasn't really a competition because it ended up benefiting the show, but we had a lot of fun together, just, trying to get big name after big name. And I think it's because of all your great years, I'll even say great there, of producing. And then, getting it back to me, I'm younger. And it wasn't that long ago where I was running my board, producing my own show and doing my own guest booking. So when you have the contacts, you may as well use them. And I think we did work very well off one another.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I do miss a lot of the guest booking part of it. It was stressful at times, but there were moments when you would break through and get a guy. And I remember getting, I was very proud of this one. Was Steve Kerr during the pandemic.
Oh yeah, that was great.
And having Coach Kerr on the show, I thought was super dope. And a lot of times, like if you want to get a guest on, like you could go through PR, you could do these things, but they're people too, and you have to remember that. So my mind's like, as long as it's not Prince Harry or the president, there's a way to find people's contacts. And I always thought that was a challenge to me. And I enjoyed doing that and finding and scheming to figure out Coach Kerr's email and able to send him a note and then, get it hooked up.
Now, Alex, you want to know the one guess? I think I know the answer to this, that Mike is still annoyed about to this day that he was not able to deliver. And I think he's still trying to get this guest on. Do you have any idea who this is?
Jason Kidd?
Not Jason Kidd. Now, I love Jason Kidd as a player. I love Jason Kidd as a player, but when I wasn't even going there. But after Jason Kidd, after 1 year of coaching, thought he was God's gift to coaching and forced his way to the Bucks. Yeah. That's when I really started to lose my love for the Nets, but more so lose my love for Jason Kidd. Now, Jason Kidd, I still respect him for what he did with the Nets, and he was one of my favorite players growing up, but that did rub me the wrong way how he did depart as a coach. He was kind of right. He spilled the drink.
Yeah, right. He was kind of right though. He saw the Nets on the way down. He's like, "Let me get out of here."
Yeah.
Still shady, right?
It was shady. Yeah.
Did you know to guess this?
I feel like if I thought about it for 40 minutes and bored people, I could come up with it, but I don't want to do that.
Mark Cuban. That's the guy that's the guy that Mike would say, I got an email back from him. He said he can't do it. And like 45 times you bring up Cuban. So that was the guy that I always thought you really wanted.
Yeah, that's one I wanted. Could not get him. I figured out his email, and you think of different ways to get these guys on the show. Like he's from Mount Lebanon, which is a suburb in Pittsburgh. That's where my wife is from. So you use all these tactics. Yeah. Brought up fucking restaurants in Pittsburgh.
Touch a nerve.
Personal connections to get it done. I tried to get him on Mike Delivers, and he got back to me and said, "Try me in the new year." So I tried him in 2021, and I get back to him, and he goes, "Yeah, I'm just booked up." And I was like,
"Try me in 2022."
I was like, "All right," made a calendar note on my Google Calendar. I'll try you in a year and we can talk about chimichangas. Like we'll figure it out. We'll see what happens.
Chimichangas. What, by the way, is the most interesting food that you ate since doing the Mike Delivers podcast?
I was the tilapia from IHOP was something.
Tilapia from
Wait, they served that at IHOP?
Yeah, I did a delivery across.
What 5-star IHOP do you go to?
What's that?
What 5-star IHOP do you go to?
Well, it's in Bloomfield, New Jersey. It's down the street from where I live. But I'll tell you the backstory was I did a delivery in the morning. It was Sunday morning at 10:30, and the order came in, and it was tilapia from IHOP.
Sunday at 10:30?
Yeah, it wasn't for me. I was doing a delivery. Fuck? Hold on. I was doing a delivery, and there was a woman that ordered tilapia from IHOP. And I saw this. I went, holy shit, this woman's ordering tilapia from IHOP. Not only is she getting tilapia, it's at 10 in the morning where people typically have breakfast. So I picked up this tilapia, dropped it off for her, gave her the food, and then I called my wife. I said, Jess, you're not going to believe this. And then from there, I said, I have to try this. I have to try this tilapia. So it's the tilapia from IHOP.
Had to suck, right? Oh, it's not bad.
The mashed potatoes were horrendous. The tilapia was fine. It was what you think it would be.
Can you imagine that
The
order?
grill marks were good.
Hey, IHOP, I need bacon, eggs, a stack of pancakes, extra chocolate chips, and strawberries. Oh, no, yeah, you have tilapia? Good. Let's order that.
Yeah.
How high was that person at 10:30 in the morning to order tilapia?
Yeah,
That's
I had a
wild.
lot of questions for her, but I did not ask him out of respect. But I would have been like, there's a big menu here. There's also so these
disgusting.
things called
There's so many
pancakes.
things, so many good things you can get. What was the tip like? Did she give you a good tip, or was
I don't
it kinda...
remember the tip, but that I don't remember. That's all kind of blended together. But definitely the tilapia from IHOP.
It's an experience you want to forget, is what you're telling me.
No. I mean, no. Go download Mike Delivers. Go check it out. My wife and I tried the tilapia from IHOP, and my cat.
Yeah,
Leon
just say
did.
I'm not great, and I'll listen to the podcast, of course.
The team that I think's great, the Nets. What do you think they do?
Oh, you're gonna say the Knicks? No, I'm just kidding.
Fuck
I
off.
think the Brooklyn Nets are going to the NBA Finals. I do. Until someone takes down James Harden, Kevin Durant, and Kyrie Irving, assuming that they're healthy and assuming everyone shows up on time, I think the Brooklyn Nets are going to the NBA Finals. If not, it's going to be because they lose to the Bucks, and then the Bucks end up getting to the finals, taking down Philadelphia. I am a believer in Brooklyn. I'm not concerned. I know their defense is not great, but I think Durant and Harden will play defense when they need to. I just don't, not that I can't see it, but it's tough for me to believe that there is going to be a team in the East, and it's just the Bucks and it's just the Sixers, that will be able to outscore the Nets 4 times in a 7-game series. The way it could be the Bucks, and this is what I think is the interesting part of the Bucks. The last 2 years, the Bucks peaked in the regular season. They had the best record in the league.
Right.
This year, they were kind of okay with not having the best record in the league. They still got the third record in the Eastern Conference, I should say. So I just wonder if the Bucks have that different gear that they could find in the postseason that was different than the last 2 years.
That makes sense. I mean, what are your thoughts about the first round predictions for Nets and Knicks series? What do you think it's going to be? I mean, we don't know who the Nets are playing when we're recording this podcast, but what do you think? What do you think is going to happen? You think Nets are going to sweep, probably, right? Or
maybe a gentleman's sweep at most, because they could go load management for a playing game, but for the playoffs. But still, they'll be able to take down whoever they get. Whether that's the Celtics or, the Wizards or, who knows, maybe one of those two teams do lose. So, they would be playing the 7th seed. So whoever is the winner of that 7-8 game they're going to get. I think they'll win that. And then for the Knicks, I think the Knicks are going to win the series. I think it's going to be a tough series. It could obviously go either way. It is going to be, seriously, how the Pacers, and I was irate about this at the time. I know he had no postseason success with the Pacers. How they fired Nate McMillan made 0 sense. And then actually, people were getting on the Hawks when they fired Lloyd Pierce, someone that Mike Delivers once did book for the Zach Gelb show. Look what Nate McMillan has done. So that's going to be a heck of a coaching matchup between Thibs and also between McMillan. I'm a New Yorker. I know I'm not a Knicks fan. I'm going to go with the Knicks. And I also, I hate to sound like Mike Francesa, who's a legend, but, I know Leon Rose very well. Okay. I went to sleepaway camp with his kids, and my dad went to sleepaway camp with Leon Rose. So I will root for the Knicks up against the Atlanta Hawks.
There you go. Well, that's good. And people keep saying, like, I want the Hawks, I want the Hawks, I want the Hawks. And that kind of scares me. My skepticism comes into my brain. Like, I'm like, because they're like, oh, they're inexperienced. Well, they got guys like Capella. They got guys like Lou Williams. They got Gallinari. These guys have been around the block. Bogdanovich. I mean, I don't know if he's been in the playoffs, but Nate McMillan's been around the block. Like, these guys have been there. I know Trae Young hasn't and whatever, but I don't know.
I'll interrupt. I'll tell you this. The funny thing is, if you ask the Hawk fans, they'd say, we want the Knicks. We want the
Who
Knicks.
are you, Evan Roberts? He said this today on his show as well.
I heard it too.
He took that from me. So
did he?
No, I'm just saying. I'm just lying. I don't know. Maybe he did. I think I recorded a podcast with him. Maybe that's why that jumped in my head.
Blended together. Yeah.
But the point is, it's like, it's nothing against the Knicks or the Hawks. It's just nobody wanted to see the Heat or the Bucks.
Mm-hmm. By the way, you're Evan Roberts, Cato Kalin. Like, every time there's a podcast, you end up getting on every time, I feel like, for this postseason.
Yeah, I'm doing it weekly with them.
Oh, you're on every week?
Yeah, I'm on every week.
Oh, the
Gotta
time
get some billing then. The Evan Roberts Brooklyn basketball podcast with Mike.
the time I just click on it is anytime I probably listen to it I don't know, once a month or something, and all the time Mike Delivers is on. I didn't know you were on that all the time, Mikey B.
Yeah, why not? All right, final one for you, Zach. Mm-hmm. Who is winning the NBA championship, and who do you have coming out of the? We know you got the Nets in the East. Who's in the West? Who do you have winning it all?
Well, if you asked me a month and a half ago, I would have said Denver. I would have had Denver up against the Nets in the finals, and the Nets would have won it. Now with Jamal Murray out, even though they got the 3 seed and Jokic is going to win the MVP, I can't pick Murray. And I love Jokic. I love Embiid. The lack of a finisher that's a guard on both those teams concern me. That's why I'm a little bit down on the Sixers. Tobias Harris, shout out Dick Sills, is going to have a big postseason if the Sixers are going to get to the finals and win it. I look in the West. 2 weeks ago, I said the Suns. But now you could get the Lakers up against the Suns. That scares me. I hate the Clippers. I can't go the Clippers. Paul George annoys me after all that crap last year. You know what? Even though tonight they asked me, they said, will you take the Lakers to the field? And I took the field. I'm going to do something that most radio hosts do. New show, going to give you a different opinion. So I'm going to go Lakers Nets in the finals.
Wow. See, it's crazy. Nobody's talking about the 1 seed in the West. The Jazz are the 1 seed in the West, loaded, healthy. Nobody is talking
Great
about
chemistry.
Them.
And they made 10 threes in every game they played this year.
Right. Superstar player. Like nobody's talking about them. That's why I think it might be the Jazz, because nobody is talking about them at all.
I will root for the Jazz. If the Jazz have a chance to get to the finals, I will root for them, because I did not like how LeBron handled that at the All-Star game draft, where he basically made it seem as if Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert shouldn't even be on the All-Star team. I get Gobert being the last pick. I know he wasn't the last pick, but if you were going to have that conversation for an All-Star team, but come on, Donovan Mitchell should not have been the last pick of that entire draft.
And he's a Mets fan. I mean, come on.
Of course.
I don't know. It's just crazy. The Jazz get no respect, and I don't know why Donovan Mitchell's not even in the MVP conversation at all. Like, nobody even talks about him, mentions him at all. He's not even.
Well, here's the thing. Do you guys find a way to bond at least over the Mets? You are a Mets fan, right, Alex?
Yes, I am. Yes.
Okay.
We bond over the Mets. Yes.
Does that bring your friendship a little bit together with all the fighting that I see on Twitter with the Nets and the Knicks?
No, it does. It does a little bit. You know what? You know what brought us together? We actually hung out in person. Like,
really?
Yeah. I mean, I've been to the Fan when we recorded the first podcast a couple times.
That's right.
CBS Sports Radio, Alex.
CBS Sports Radio. I'm sorry. Excuse me.
That's the same place.
Hudson Street, exactly. And so like we hung out a couple times that time. We had a beer once or whatever, but that's years ago now. And then so we hung out once, and my dog met his cat, and the cat ran away, and but my fiance and his wife
Leon,
hit
don't
it
mess
off.
with Leon. You don't fuck with Leon. Zach Gelb show listener. we need all the ones that we could get.
Yeah, no, but Leon was out of there. Ruby is a little puppy, and she was 11 months old, and Leon was, I'm out of here. Screw this. Like when she saw
terrified.
But the point is that my fiance and Mike's wife are like, they hit it off. So I feel
really? That's good.
Yeah, they were like having private conversations, and we were sitting there watching basketball, like discussing Robert Covington or something, and they were like in there, like, oh hey, yeah, So it was kind of a bizarre moment. So we bond on a lot of things.
Now I know there's only 5 minutes left in this, and I hate to overtake the show with now asking the questions, but when I was on Mike's podcast the first time, he said, I appreciate I find it interesting how now you're asking me questions and I'm supposed to be asking you questions.
That's a good sign.
Mike, I need you to be my therapist here. So Alex called me out for not following him. I did not know I wasn't following him, by the way.
That's okay.
And then because I would DM you a bunch, so I just thought I was following you. So now I'm following him, and you warned me, Mike. You told me don't do it. Like, do not follow him. You were going to want to take a knife and stab your eyes out during Knicks games. There's too many Knicks tweets. Like, can we put you in a load management program during Knicks games? Like, we do not. Someone dribbled the basketball 7 times. We don't need a freak out tweet that he should have only dribbled it 5 times. Like, oh my goodness gracious.
People like that stuff, though, man. People like it. Not guys like you, but people like it. I don't know. But there's my whole timeline is just a bunch of Knicks fans. Most of my followers and people that I follow. Yeah. So I'm seeing that on my timeline. People doing the same thing, like live tweeting. So I'm kind of like interacting with them. Yeah, no, sometimes I get mad because I'll miss a play. I'm like, fuck.
Because you're tweeting too much.
Yeah. No, I definitely do.
Yeah, your next tweet is, I would have had something to comment on, but I wasn't watching. Let me just get the score from the TV. Mike Breen told me what it was. It's terrible.
Do you think if we challenged him to only tweet during commercial breaks, he could do it?
No.
That'll be tough. That'd be tough. If there's like a crazy play or something like that, like
what the Nets
it'll be
did
tough.
the other night. If there was that play
That off the
Nets did
backboard,
the other night, I don't even know how to describe it. Luckily, I am Eagle.
awesome.
He does that for a living. But seriously, if a play like that happened, I don't think I would actually want a live camera on you. This is the content I would create. Having to sit on your hands or like have like Edward Scissorhands not being able to tweet until they went to a TV timeout.
And then I get to put my phone in front of them and just tweet and be like, the Knicks suck, the Knicks suck, the Knicks suck, and have to have them watch it. Would be
Well, I got to kind of sit on my hands. I've told this story on the podcast before. I got to kind of sit on my hands because there was early in the season, the Austin Rivers games, and when he hit all those threes and when the Knicks won that game, I jumped up and pumped my fist. And my puppy, she was like way younger at that time. Now she's only 11 months. She freaked out and she peed all over the floor. And I'm like, okay, no more fist pump.
Gotcha.
Like
I thought you were going to tell me that you hit the puppy. Then I would have exited
forbid.
out of the podcast, and that would have been it.
No,
for me.
not on this pod. Animal love.
Never.
Well, Zach, thank you for coming on the podcast. If you guys are interested, as you should be, to listen to the great Zach Gelb show, you can find it on You can find it on CBS Sports Radio. And if you're in New York listening to this, just get the Odyssey app. Simple, easy to download. Check out Zach, 6 to 10 p.m. Eastern. Check out his show. Get all this great shenanigans. And then follow him on Twitter. At Zach Gelb is the handle. So, Zach, thank you for coming on Bad Weather Fans. Thank you for dealing with Alex and my bullshit. And thank you for being a friend of the show.
Alex, great job. Mike, wonderful job. A+. Love you, brother.
There you go.